Hello and welcome to this fireplace chat. Player skill versus character skill. Let's start with an example. Player A is an eloquent, outgoing, charismatic guy. So he can talk his way past a bouncer in the local disco, and he will try to use that skill to get past the bouncer of a tavern, to influence a noble, to give them more money, and so on. But his character is barbarian with a charisma of 8. On the other hand, player B is not that outspoken, a bit taciturn actually, but he's playing a bard with a charisma of 16. When he goes up to a bouncer to get into the tavern, he would say, I try to talk the bouncer to let me get past him. Or another situation. Party is searching for traps, trying to find and disarm them. One player, player A, has worked in forensics, so he will plan to, in his mind, divide the area where the trap might be into 1-inch squares, and then look at each 1-inch square individually, to be able to focus on all of the details rather than getting distracted by the big picture. Now, the other player has never been in forensic. He might even be short-sighted. But he is playing an elf with a wisdom of 14 and the sharpest senses since Legolas set foot out of the woods. And he would say, I search for traps. Third example. The party is stuck at a riddle door. It says about the door in Elvish, speak friend, and step in. And the party is thinking about that for a fair while. The wizard player with a character intelligence of 16 is especially stumped by the riddle. But the player of the halfling thieves with intelligence 8 goes like, well, what's the Elvish word for friend? You all know that one. Now there are two extreme ways you might rule these situations. One is to focus on player skill, and the other is to focus on character skill. If you focus on player skill, then the guy that is a really good smooth talker will be able to influence the NPC, get more reward, talk their way past guards and out of bad situations with their silver tongue, no matter what charisma their character has. And you will have some great role-playing at the table, I imagine. The forensics guy will be able to find pretty much any trap, no matter how blind their character is. And while doing so, you might learn something about forensic you maybe didn't even want to know. And finally, the player of the halfling thieves with their bright idea will show up the player of the wizard and solve the riddle. The other extreme ruling would be to only use character skill. Then no matter how well spoken your player is, they have to do a charisma check, and if their character's charisma is low, very slim chance of success. But the player playing the bard with charisma 16, no matter how taciturn they are and how short and factual and maybe even dull their description of how they're trying to talk their way past the guards is, they've got a pretty good chance of success. The elven player will have the best chances to find the traps because of the high wisdom score. No matter how little about tracking, forensics, finding traps, finding hidden things the player has, no matter how blind they are. And lastly, of course, the wise, intelligent wizard will be the one to solve the riddle, not the stupid halfling thief. I find all of these extreme rulings a little bit meh. You can do it, but in certain situations I really don't like it. So I've been going a kind of middle way. And since I've read the Adventurer Conqueror King Judges Journal, I found a pretty nice rule how you can do this, a pretty nice description. And that would be that the player directs the character, but the character in the game world actually has to act. Back to the examples. The player with the bard who's talking to the king, trying to get more troops to help them, will go into an elaborate speech, use a silver tongue, and then at the end of it, you as the GM will go, okay, roll for charisma. And if the barbarian doesn't roll well, then what the player wanted the barbarian to say will come out something like, I'm strong, give me troops. Because the barbarian is not eloquent. And no matter how good the direction that the barbarian is getting from the player, he can only talk so well. Same with the second example. They're searching for traps, and the forensics player describes exactly how they want to search for traps, but then you have to roll on wisdom. And if you don't roll well, then the character will try their best to find the trap, but they won't see it. Now, for the third example, the riddle, I think here it works worst. Because for a riddle, there usually is a right and a wrong answer. And pretty much the only direction you can give your character would be solve the riddle. Then you roll intelligence, and if you roll well, your character solves the riddle, but where's the fun in that? Now what you also might do is, if someone plays a wizard with very high intelligence or similar, whatever solution they come up with for the riddle is the right one. That might work if there really is no right or wrong solution for the riddle, because it's a bit arbitrary. But as soon as your players find that out, that your ruling is that way, then riddles become a simple skill check, and kinda that robs me of the fun of riddles. I enjoy riddles because I can solve them at the table with my own skills. And I tend to run traps and environmental obstacles in general. I run them as a puzzle. How do you get past the trap? How do you block it? How do you solve it? Maybe if the players come up with a solution that requires a skill roll, like jumping past, climbing over it, sneaking past, something like that, then they can do the skill roll, and they will have the solution and the skill roll. But these are certainly situations where I tend towards player skill rather than character skill. Now, what you can, of course, also do in this middle ground is that the players decide on their strategy and course of action and their method of problem solving that will give them the best chance to succeed at whatever obstacle, problem, situation they are encountering. For example, back to the bouncer at the tavern door. Now, if you're playing a bard, you might want to talk your way past the bouncer, maybe bribe your way past if you've got a lot of gold. Or if you're playing a barbarian, you might want to wrestle the bouncer to the ground, strike him down with your mighty fist. So you've changed the charisma check to get past the bouncer into a strength check. You can do that with many traps. Usually it might be a roll on something like dexterity to disarm the trap. But maybe instead you push a really heavy boulder down the corridor to trip or block the trap. And that might be a strength check. Or using a lever and a complicated pulley system. That way the GM will allow you to roll an intelligence check. That's a totally legit way to run player and character skill. But I still don't think it works for riddles. If I've got a door riddle or something similar, I want my players to take their best guesses and then either be right or wrong, depending on their skill. And you can always argue that even if the wizard is terribly intelligent, they might just be stumped by the simple logic of the puzzle. They would never think that the password would be something as banal and simple as friend. Explain why the halfling players of the riddle and not the wizard player. What do you think? How are you ruling these kind of situations? Are you somewhere in the extremes, only player skill, only character skill, or somewhere in the middle? Or do you have a different solution for different situations? Let me know in the comments below. Thanks for watching. I wish thee safe travels, dreamers, until we shall meet again.